And finally, it's time for a 356 video. Yay! So clearly, this is the gas tank, and today's project is to work on the sound insulation that goes both on the tank and around the tank, also in the engine bay and so forth. But I'm gonna focus on the tank today. This project today is pretty near and dear to my heart, just like a lot of things in the 356 are. I bought that car in 1997, 1998, somewhere in that range. So it was back when I was young. And this is the very first thing I did to that car. Because when I test drove it from the seller, it kept stalling. It was hard to start. And the reason was because the fuel tank was clogged and it had a bunch of junk in it. So when I towed it home, the first thing I did is ripped out the old tank. It was rusty, had a lot of damage on the bottom, a lot of pitting. So I ended up replacing it with a replacement tank then. It was pretty affordable at the time. This was, like I said, late 90s. So this replacement tank was quickly painted. It's not done very well. And I never did get the tar paper insulation on the top. You can see the layers of dust. It's been a long time coming. I did treat the inside of the tank with just a little bit of two-stroke oil, if I remember right. Some of it's still in there, so I'm gonna dump out whatever oil's in there, make sure there's no corrosion inside, but I don't think there is. I did have it capped off. You can see here, that was capped off with a drill bit too, so I think it's okay inside. Right now, we're just working on the cosmetics. This tank should be good to go. Ah, so much dust. Now I've already removed the sender unit because it was stored with the sender unit in there. Here's how it looks with just the dust taken off of it. Not too bad. It's got a few dents in it. I don't know if I did that or if it came shipped that way. A couple dents there on top. I did get a couple years of use of this tank. This is a situation where my car actually did run when I parked it. I took it apart to do rust repair. I couldn't handle the bubbles in the doors and all the rust everywhere. And that's where it really snowballed. And finally getting back to it. I never thought it would take this long, but I'm not mad about it. This car has been part of my life. Even though I haven't driven it in a number of years, I've always enjoyed working on it. And my standards have improved since I first got the car, and the values have improved on these cars too. So this is a good example. I didn't even bother to put the tar mat on there. And this is what I have today. This is a reproduction, but it is very accurate to the original material. This material is just sitting on here at the moment, but this stuff is the authentic stuff. There are some materials that aren't quite as authentic, and if you want it to look right, you got to spend the money. This stuff is not cheap, but in my opinion, this car, to me, totally deserves it. I also got this extra piece here. This is what the back looks like. So the back of this material, it's tar based and it's like an asphalt. We got to heat this up pretty hot in order to get it liquid so it'll actually stick to the tank. But well, I'm gonna have a little practice piece here and we'll get it to stick down. Replace this cork gasket too. There we go. So luckily this tank is what they call the top sender tank. The previous year, some of the tanks had the sender on the bottom. So you can imagine how that gasket would leak when you have all the fuel pressure just waiting to get through. Porsche quickly realized their mistake and put it here at the top, which is I think where it should be. And now I'm using some wax and grease remover to get it as clean as possible. I'm just gonna scuff and reshoot this a little bit lighter gray. I mean, no one knows exactly what the color was, but there are some opinions as to what it should be. And I have a paint sample that's supposed to be the correct color. It's a little lighter than this. So just a scuff and shoot. Obviously this part gets covered up with the black pad, but you will see the perimeter and you'll see part of this. So just want it to all be the right color. The paint's nice and clean now, so now it's just a matter of sanding it with 400. I'm using the red Scotch-Brite pad on all parts of the tank here, getting all the shiny spots off, and I got it basically ready for paint. There is a few dents on the other side. I can't believe I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna put a little body filler on some of the dents just because those are visible from the top. Right here is a pretty large dent and a couple little ones right there. So I'm just gonna skim it real quick. Probably not 100% necessary, but like I said, this car gets the best of the best. And interestingly enough, the color of the sanded tank is pretty close to what I'm after. It gets lighter when you sand it, but this is pretty much the color that I'm after. This is the paint chip I got from way back when of what's supposed to be the correct factory color. Okay, this paint is just an enamel paint. It's Rust-Oleum. Generally not recommended for gas tanks. However, I am going to add a catalyst. This is a hardener for enamel paints, and that gives it a lot of chemical resistance and makes it a harder paint surface so it won't scratch and stuff in the trunk. Also, this color is too dark, so I have some white, and this is flat white. So that's gonna take the sheen down as well as lightening up the color a little bit. I kind of think this is what Porsche may have done. I don't think the paint codes or the paint color on things like gas tanks were super consistent. I get this at my local hardware store. It's about $16 a quart, and it's way more than I need, but I use this stuff for all kinds of projects. If you guys are interested in the name of the color, this is called Gloss Smoke Gray. Yeah, Gloss Smoke Gray. And this is just flat white. So you see the difference in color there from the stick. Let's put a little more white in. You can see how the thickness is really thick there. This is like a brushable paint, but if we use acetone, we can thin it down quite a bit for my spray gun. Probably hard to see in the camera, but to me, this is pretty dang close. So I'm gonna drop a little bit of this on the back, dry it out, make sure I like the color. Unfortunately, Mac is back on the winch again because I have the rear bumper and all the electrical for the rear taillights apart. It looks pretty good if you ask me. I'm happy with the color. Still pretty glossy, but it's Rust-Oleum. It's gonna lose its gloss over time. Plus, I put that flattener in it with the white. So this, I think, is gonna be the perfect sheen. And to me, the color is that dolphin gray, light gray. Just, I think it's very close, at least within the variability that Porsche had. So really happy. This is my bodywork section right here. It looks better. Okay, now we're playing with fire. This is that sample piece that I just want to, heat up the back, and I'm gonna, try to stick it onto this scrap piece of metal. Just get a feel for the material. Let's check the temperature. It's heating up quick. Yeah, that's 200. Okay, it's starting to drip off over here, so it heats up pretty quick. That's 203. I think that's about it. Yeah, super gummy. So we're gonna position it as best we can. Push it down. You can see it's oozing a little bit from the side. This is where it started to drip, and I was overheated a little bit on that side. And then this side looks decent. That's just the material flowing out. And it does tend to make it sound better. This, to me, is one of the best looking gas tanks out of any car I've ever seen. It's just got like a real cool banana shape to it. Also all these indentations. It's amazing how much they do to these things. And now we're gonna cover it up with a piece of tar. This is that sample piece I did yesterday, and it is very well adhered. There's no way you can take this off. And ideally, you would do this on a hot day, but it's November. It's about 62 right now, so we're gonna get out the fire gun and heat it up, and we'll get really just one chance to stick it on. I've just given myself a target tape line, like a 3/8 little gap here. So that's where I'm gonna lay it down, right there within that tape line. Another one right there. Normally I would say don't do this with a gas tank. There's been no gas in this for over 10 years. It's 100.
106. Yeah, it's about 200 in the middle. Yeah, I think that's gonna do it. It's very floppy. Yeah, it's a mess. Okay, that did not go well. The paper is really easy to tear. So once I tore it, I couldn't get it down in the right place. So I'm gonna have to rethink this method, come up with a better way. But right now I just want to get this remnants off so I could, hopefully do this again. Left with a little bit of tar on there. That's obviously gonna get covered up with the new piece. This was not intentional, made a complete mess out of this. Sorry about that, guys. Stand by for part 2 on this. I will figure this out. I think my mistake was picking it up from the floor. That's when it tore, and trying to align it from a hot mess is just not possible. I think it's gonna be better to preheat the tank, lay it on top, and heat it as you go, as opposed to heating it on the ground. So I've never done this before, obviously.